Hello and welcome back to the EF5 podcast, the crossroads between logistics and life. And I'll tell you what, this next story that we got, it definitely crosses both roads. That is for sure. It is that intersection. We're at the red light.
Yes.
Is it green though? Is the red light green now?
No, it's red.
Red, hard red.
Yes.
Not moving. All right. So this story, I'll let my dad tell it a little bit more. He's a little bit more knowledgeable about it. So I'll just let you open it up. Give us some context to what you're about to talk about.
Okay. So, to make life easy, we have technology available. Meaning, a long, long time ago, you used to have to use a broom to do a lot of tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you can use a blower to do a lot of the same things that a broom can do.
That's how we clean the house.
With a blower?
Yep.
It works sometimes with the dog hair. So, we bought a blower here at work to clean the trucks, to clean the dock, to help with efficiency. The blower we've had for, I guess, a good almost 2 years. It's done good.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the blower grew legs and walked away. So
This is tragic.
we've placed the blower in a spot that it gets returned every time it doesn't get used.
Right.
It didn't get returned this time.
And where's that spot at, just so people know?
It is a centralized location where everybody travels through because everybody is either thirsty or hungry at some point.
Yep.
And we have coffee, we have a refrigerator. So the blower's on a shelf in the break room.
Yep.
So it doesn't get ran over by a forklift, doesn't get left somewhere. So you have to physically walk somewhere, pick it up, physically walk back, use it, and the idea was as you bring it back.
Right.
However,
It was a good idea.
it was until recently. And then recently, when somebody, I guess, sat it somewhere, it grew legs and walked away.
This is tragic. A story unfolding right before our eyes. Now, with this leaf blower story, some may be asking, where are we going with this? And that's a good question. I do have a little bit of an answer. That answer is we are leaning towards trying to figure out how to appropriately handle this leaf blower. Now,
Look, hang on.
Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. It's not about the blower.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we can't use a broom.
Yep.
It's not that we're more efficient. It's not that the blower costs $140.
Yep.
It's the point that drives me crazy is it's the little things.
Right.
And if the little things don't matter, then the big things won't matter.
Right.
And so I'm kind of picky on a lot of the little things that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was starting to lean into. It wasn't necessarily about the leaf blower being gone. It was the fact that no one cared enough about the leaf blower.
Well, I wouldn't say they didn't care enough, but what is perception that sometimes turns into reality is they didn't care enough.
Right. Now, how do you appropriately handle this? Do you just yank $140 out of people's paychecks because you have the option to do that?
Hey, I'm the business owner, so that's how I make my money.
Yeah. See, perfect. What is that? Was that compensation for owning the business?
Exactly.
Yep.
Everybody thinks you got all the money.
Yep. Exactly.
So you wonder how I got it.
That's how we get the new leaf blower.
There's two things. It's the one thing, the little things matter, and they should matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of that is if you have pride in what you do, then that should show.
Right.
And it should show whether you're the person that used it or whether you work in an environment that had access to it.
Right.
And it's it's such a small, crappy little thing, but it matters so much to me that those two things conflict with why it matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
One, somebody gives you the perception that the little things aren't that important. And then two, they give you the perception that they don't have the care in who they are as a person.
Right. Right. Now, that is a good answer, but I want to lean towards something else. There's a particular trait I'm thinking of. Is it a trait? I don't think trait's the word I'm looking for.
Everything's a trait here.
Trait. Yeah, I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. A particular
the baby
word.
was born.
Yeah.
And it has this.
But a particular word I'm looking for, more so on the forgiveness side. The word I'm looking for is grace. And it's about how everyone handles it, right? Whether or not they own up to it, or maybe offering to buy a new one, something like that. The gracefulness of each employee, you included, me included, is very important with a story like this, because if we don't handle something like that gracefully and acknowledging it, then it only gets worse, right? I mean, from everyone's point of view. If I shift the blame to someone else, or if I just straight up, falsify it, there's plenty of things that could go wrong with that. Whereas gracefully, if I just, accept the fault and move on, and then, focus on the little things moving forward, it's a totally different scenario.
Well, it's both sides, like you mentioned. It's me as the world famous, got all this money business owner,
Mm-hmm.
as the leader, to say, okay, even though I think I'm perfect most of the time, no, just kidding. There's plenty of things I've done that have been perceived unintentionally as something that's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to kind of remember that as the leaders, as well as recognize that to those that might have been involved, whether they directly carried the blower or whether they had no knowledge of the blower.
Absolutely.
So it's two parts of that, and giving it and receiving it are two hard things along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the difficulties of it, the description or the definition of grace per whatever Google website I looked at, Merriam-Webster, something like that. The definition of grace is unconditional forgiveness, right? And that would be a time of that. Now, something as small as a leaf blower, you can either be really upset about it and never forget it, or you could be easily forgiven and move on, or there's somewhere in between where you like delay sometimes. You don't want to be one extreme or the other. You want to be able to emphasize the importance of it, like you said, emphasize the little things, but also understand that it is kind of the little things too, and you can't, burn the place down because the leaf blower's gone.
I don't know. I felt like that.
That is true. You have been acting kind of like that recently.
Look, my face is probably red still from the whole leaf blower.
I remember to give a little bit of context of the leaf blower chase.
Here we go.
I was sitting working in this very room, and in the door behind me, you can't really see it, but behind me, and the door behind him, there was multiple people cycling through this room. Like, anyone been in here? Anyone been in here? I was like, yeah, there's been 2 people in here. Third person came in. I was like, hey, there's already been people in here. Oh, there has been? Oh, okay. And then they left. It was an absolute catastrophe. But the moral of the story is really the unconditional forgiveness is, no matter the reasoning behind it, being able to unconditionally forgive is so important. Not in necessarily just a business world about leaf blowers, but even in like a society, it's such a hard topic to talk about, especially when you have, certain people that may not deserve it, right?
Well, there's a part that you hit on about the definition regarding forgiveness. And so let's be clear on what forgiveness looks like. Forgiveness just means I don't carry the burden, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't mean I forget. It just means I don't have that burden anymore.
Right.
And so if you can kind of be clear what forgiveness looks like. So in this little leaf blower story, the forgiveness looks like whoever might have been the last one to touch it, they got to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
whether they want to speak up, whether they're nervous about it, whatever the dynamics, or whether they just indirectly don't realize they're the last one that touched it and placed it somewhere. But I guarantee you, as much as we might want to believe that the leaf blower grew legs and walked away, it did not.
Right.
So somebody contributed to that. I have to let it go and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then that person has to recognize the next time they're in a moment to accept not to let that happen.
Absolutely.
And then in between, we have what is developed called grace that begins to build once those two things take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, the forgiveness that you said, you know, not carrying the burden is something that we are doing, because some people that are watching this are not subscribed right now, right? And they're not liking it. They aren't commenting on the post, and we forgive you for that. We don't carry that burden, but you do, and you've been acknowledged now.
I have plenty of grace for you.
Yep. And now that we know, or now that you know that we know.
But you got to give a shout out to your fan club.
I do have a fan club.
You're the man stealing the show.
Growing every day somehow. Every day. I don't know what I'm doing, but everyone loves me. It's building my ego.
Here we go.
It's building my ego.
Here
really.
we go.
I'm gonna start my own brand.
You're under contract for life.
Is there like a
No.
Is there like
contract.
a posse name I could use, like in WWE?
Well, you got to work on that.
Well, you know, like the Hardys had Hardy Boys, and then you remember Christian Cage, the guy that was
No.
Edge's guy?
I'm much older than you.
What? Okay, well, Pat Patterson died yesterday.
Much older than you.
That's about your age. That was about your age.
Now.
Hey, you said you're much older than me. I threw it out.
I forgot about old Pat.
Yeah. You know he was the creator of the Royal Rumble.
I did not.
I didn't know that either until yesterday. So there's a lot of things I didn't know about him until yesterday, it appears.
So maybe we can start that where somebody can decide what your fan club name's going to be.
Absolutely. So, you know, now that I've called
Here's your
everybody
chance
out.
to comment.
Yep, comment on the Cole Taylor fan club, and we'll move on from there. But speaking of moving on, gracefully, we shall transfer this to the exit strategy.
Which is?
We leaving and we out.